upon the earth. So the first one deals with the earth, the first trumpet. And you have it upon the earth. And again, if you go through the commentary, some say, well, it's not really literal hail or fire and all this. I can't see, the more I go through it, I can't see why a lot of this stuff isn't totally literal. Sure, there's some symbolism when God describes, okay, the 7 stars in his hand, explains a couple verses later what it is. So if it's a symbol, it seems to explain it. If it's not a symbol, it doesn't seem to explain it. So why not take it literally? And I think these things happen. And it was mingled with blood, and you'll see the commentary in Morris and stuff, what that may be. But hail and fire mingled with blood were cast upon the earth, and a third part of the trees was burnt up, and all green grass was burnt up. So the earth, trees, and grass. 1/3. So the first trumpet sounds. Now remember, what is interesting, I think these correspond, we'll look in our notes, I think these correspond, again, similar to the plagues of Egypt. Now, when we get in the future chapters and we talk about the 2 witnesses, it'll be interesting because who their identity is, again, we'll be getting into that and speculating about who they are. But if it is Moses or someone like Moses or the same ministry as Moses or like that, it's very similar, these plagues. Maybe they're the ones in the human view. We're getting the heavenly view. The human view, here are these 2 witnesses. They're pronouncing judgment upon the world and upon the government there, telling people to repent. And I think like maybe the Jews at that time maybe ask for signs or whatever, but they're going to show signs. And I think they maybe say, we'll call something like, okay, the grass is going to be destroyed. And all of a sudden, all the people see is all this 1/3 destroyed. And it looks like they're doing it, these 2 witnesses. That's why they're going to despise him and hate him. They're going to rejoice when they're killed. But up in heaven, it's the trumpet that sounded. And it happened here on earth. So whether that's true or not, that doesn't matter. But it would make sense that as it goes along and progresses, why the people hate these 2 witnesses. It looks like they're doing it. It's these wretched guys, and you can't even go kill them. They should go get them like the band of 50 that went to get Elijah. Fire. Boom. It's like out of their mouth. Whether that like this, I don't know. Can't see that, but they call it out anyways, and it destroys them. Yeah. Yeah. So whether it's like that or probably maybe they call it out, it comes out of their mouth, the judgment, they're destroyed. And they're another 2 who they can't kill. It's 144,002 they can't destroy. So anyways, so we see that. There's the first trumpet. Now remember, all this is going to have an effect upon the system. Oh yeah, we forgot to draw one other thing in here that I just remembered. Yeah, it said in 7 verse 1, it said, after these things I saw 4 angels standing in the 4 corners of the earth, holding the 4 winds of the earth, that the wind should not blow on the earth, nor on the sea, nor on any tree. And when allowed to hurt it, it just couldn't blow. Now it's interesting, if this would happen around the same time, that was 7:1. You have 4 angels, no wind. And again, some conclude this goes along with what seems about the same time. It doesn't give a time period. Maybe it corresponds to the 3.5 years of the 2 witnesses. Drought. There's no wind. There's just drought because they called drought for 42 months. And just like Elijah, 3.5 years, no rain. So it's been done before, and wouldn't matter if it was or not, but no wind. And so it'd be interesting. Again, they call it, it's these controlling it, but they call it and it goes forth from their mouth and there's no wind. Imagine the effect all this kind of stuff is going to have upon the ecosystem of the earth. You can see why. If there's no wind, there's doldrums all over the place. There's drought for 3.5 years if it starts near the start with the 2 witnesses. There's some wars and stuff. Of course there's going to be famine and pestilence. It's just going to get worse. That's why there's going to be, where it's named this thing for famine, where a day's wages for 1 meal of wheat, or a day's wages for 3 meals of barley. And there's going to be those that are still going to be rich. Of course, the beast and whoever is in the hierarchy is going to have their oil and wine. But the rest, you can see as all this stuff keeps surmounting on it, the effect it keeps happening. This earthquake, if it does cover with some kind of cloud that shakes up. You can destroy so much, it's just going to wreck the whole ecosystem. There's just not going to be anything. It's going to be slim pickings at best. And when this goes on. So anyways, now Earth, the trees and grass, a third. You can imagine what that's going to do to replenishing the oxygen that's used up. I'm not that much of a scientist. The more it goes into it, more what could happen. The cumulative effect of all this stuff that's happening during this period, just what it's going to be like on the Earth. And you can see why there's going to be silence in heaven in a sense. This seems like so much already. And yet, when we come to the three woes, the last three trumpets, there's even more. So, let's go on. And so, so I think it's something like hail and fire mingled with blood. And when that blood's like literal blood, or again, if it's an iron content or something, is blood-like, it is cast upon the earth. And again, it could be similar to some kind of meteors or asteroids or whatever, or it could be just something that appears. I'm sure they'll have a natural explanation for it, the unbelievers. But then the second angel sounded, and as it were, a great mountain burning with fire was cast into the sea, and a third part of the sea became blood, and a third part of the creatures died, and the ships were destroyed. So it seems the ships are destroyed not because the water has turned to blood, something like a tidal wave or something. If this is a literal type mountain, it could be a bigger asteroid burning, coming through the atmosphere, lands into a sea, and a third of it, whether it's the Mediterranean Sea or wherever it hits, you can imagine this big thing like a mountain hitting the tidal wave. It'll destroy the ships around that area. It also, maybe with the chemicals it's made up of, just go through, it kills the things. You can have a stench and a mess. You have a lot of stuff destroyed. The tidal wave, you think of some of the ports along, you have a 20-foot high tidal wave or something. It wipes out and does a lot of damage too, whether the ships are in dock or not. So anyways, you have the second trumpet. And again, there seems to be a progression. Remember, we said this is Revelation. It seems like these don't flip all over the place and this comes over here and that. It seems to be some sort of progression. So this one, you have the sea. You have the mountain. And you have 1/3. And it's interesting, commentators notice it's always a third. It's always a third. You see this as third. And again, they say maybe it's a sign again to other people. Each judgment, I think the Lord is trying to get people to be saved, to see it's His hand. And some of the Jews will know it's a third. It's just, I'm sure they're not going to measure everything and have a chance, but it'll come out to being a third all the time. It's not something that's just a freak accident. That's always a third. That this is the hand of God. So that happens. And then you have the sea destroyed. And of course, you have a whole bunch of stuff associated with that. What will happen to the ecosystem? It's just amazing that any will live by the mid-tribulation if this is the sequence. And you have the stench and the rot. The sea became blood. And again, some say, well, it's a chemical thing or whatever. Some notice that salt water, the difference between salt water and blood isn't very much. They're pretty well, they're almost the same substance. So it doesn't take too much. Yeah, it's in the notes. There isn't too much that makes a difference. I think it's the hemoglobin, that's it. But there could be some chemical to be added. Remember too, God will know. It becomes just like blood. It's no great feat for Him. Verse 10, and the third angel sounded, and there fell a great star from heaven, burning as it were a lamp, and it fell upon the third part of the rivers, and upon the fountains of the waters. And the name of the star is called Wormwood. And the third part of the rivers became wormwood. Many men died of the waters because they were made bitter. So the third angel, you have, I'll just put waters, fresh. And again, there's speculation. The idea that, okay, this is not a star as we think of a star, that could not make sense. A solar body, like our sun, hitting the earth. You can fit, I think, was it over a million stuff? Yeah. So stars also, you look in the scriptures, refer to two things. They refer to bodies where they're like, they wouldn't say so much like, we call them falling stars, meteorites or stuff, bodies like that in the heavens, or angels. Now, they say and I have no problem of this being like it's another type of meteorite, or it could be an angel too, because it has a name, wormwood. But also at the same time, the Lord knows the name of every star, so that doesn't make a difference either. So whether it's an angel, he actually pours stuff over these rivers, right? Has something he pours it over, or it's an actual some meteorite that breaks up and somehow covers all this area with a chemical. To me, it happens. It could be either one.
Is there an explanation for the word wormwood?
In our notes, see, that's 8:11. Wormwood is literally the deadly liquor ingredient known as absthine, from the Greek asptenos. The term wormwood is also used several times in the Old Testament, where it is translated of the Hebrew lana, once translated in King James as hemlock. There it is suggested that it is a poison derived from a root of some kind, Deuteronomy 29:18. That is very bitter, Proverbs 4:5, and that it produces drunkenness, Lamentations 3:15, and eventual death, associated with another poison known as gall. The one third, given a symbolic name, wormwood, the peoples of the earth take on the character of evil one. See, I don't like that spiritualizing. They need to spiritualize it that this doesn't really happen. It's a characteristic, and people become bitter or something like that. No. It says the reference to wormwood seems to draw a parallel experience to the children of Israel at the waters of Marah, where the tree cast into the bitter waters made them sweet. Here, the wormwood cast into the sweet waters makes it bitter. So, and it progresses. The order of the first four trumpets: earth, sea, rivers, and fountains of waters, and then we're going to see the sun. So, it's like a poison. It's like hemlock, and again, that could be a chemical of the whatever falls into the earth. It could be an angel pouring it over, or it could be this thing dispersing, however God's going to use it. But it does make the waters bitter, and it says and many men died of the water because they were made bitter. So that means men are drinking it too. They still drink it. Remember, all that's going on. You may have drought. You're going to have 3.5 years if that happens here of no rain. You can have a lot of happening, and still they're going to drink it. It sounds like pretty tough times. You're going to drink bitter water. That thirsty. Like men who've been left out to sea, and they end up drinking the salt water. It makes them even more sick, and they die. So this happens. It's the waters, and again, it's 1/3 of the fresh, and the fountain. So it sounds like it's in the water table too. Whether it happens to a certain locality or what.
Supplies it.
Yeah. And it says the fourth angel sounded, and a third part of the sun was smitten, and a third part of the moon, and a part of the stars, and darkness, and the day shone not for the third part of it, and the night likewise. Now see again, these all seem to go along with, if you look at the vials, they seem to go right along with it. But the difference is, like the one dealing with the sun, here it's darkened. The other one, it's scorching hot. It's contrast. So that's why before I used to thought they went underneath, but the more I looked at it, the more there are a lot of differences. It hits the same areas, right? I think there's an order and there's a reason for it. Again, following the plagues that went in Egypt. Maybe even during this time, because of such idolatry, people start worshiping these kind of gods again. And again, God showing, I'm God. And he affects the very things that they worship. And of course, the reason why then they get back up to these, because they think, oh, it's not the true God is showing us. It's these guys, our God, the sun god or the earth god or whatever, is mad at us because we're not dealing with these guys. Whatever. I don't know. But this happens. And now what's happening here is actually that it seems like there's the star, and we've seen, or we're going to see, there's an angel in control of the winds. There's an angel in control of the waters. And it sounds like later on when you look at the fourth vial, there's an angel control of the sun. Remember, it's beyond our thinking. We don't have this kind of revelation of angels in their ministries in the rest of the Bible. This is why it's real revealing and sometimes hard to take when people see this. But there's no problem why it can't be.
Well, if you think about all the things that the angels are doing here, then you can look back in the Old Testament where things were unexplained, like the uh, the sun stayed. It was an extra long day
Yeah.
one time. Okay, so then an angel was doing that, and then angels controlling the winds. Well, the word said that God caused this wind to blow all night long, and then the river was parted because of this
Yep.
wind. So if you look at it that way, you can see that a lot of these events that happen is by ministry of angels in the Old Testament, even though it didn't say it there.
Yeah. And that's it. We get an unveiling now. We get to see behind the scenes. And so the same thing is we'll see the angel where he intensifies the sun and it scorches men. Here he's the moon and all that, they're just reflected light. So if you turn down the brightness control in a sense on the sun a third, now they'll have natural explanations, all the scientists of the world this time, why it's going down a third. We just know it does. And it could be the angel who's in control of that body, whatever. Just like it's interesting then, all the stars, which are suns, and if he knows all their names, and if they're all angels in control of them, it's just interesting. Who says it's not? That he gives them a ministry to do. Just like we know we'll be ministering, we don't know how, but he gives us things to do. Not that God couldn't do it himself, he does that. So the sun basically turned down a third, meaning also that everything else is turned down a third too. And the stars also, which I mean, if there's an angel in this sun, how about all the other suns? But it does happen, and it's turned on third. Remember again, it was interesting because I'm not a farmer, but if you cut off a third of the day, you shorten a third of the day. What does that do to planting and growing season? All these things, you start adding them up. The earth is really getting it. The ecosystem and all that kind of stuff. Food and water, basic necessities, have become very scarce. You can see where this is going to come. So true in some ways. And there's still going to be food, but it's going to be scarce. The value of it is just going to be worth a day's wages just to eat. Nothing else, just to eat.
Consider the fact that if the greenhouse effect can cause the Earth over a 20-year period or something to change the mean temperature by 1 degree, that a major portion, there'll be floods all over the world because a major portion of the ice in the North and South Pole will melt.
Oh, yeah.
Imagine we're a third less would do to in the opposite to that. We can't even imagine it.
Yeah. So I think this is maybe the intensity thing, but I think it lasts. Instead of 12 hours, I think we'll have 8 hours or something like that of sunlight. And of course, the moon, everything's down, so it could affect the temperature. Maybe it gets cooler. It doesn't really say about that, but we can see that truly. And if this is all, these trumpets are all part of this last seal. That last seal was a doozy. And in fact, we're going to see. Remember, just like if we don't know the end, like we do, because we read through the book, as you see it keep progressing, it's just getting wild. And then when finally we see the seventh trumpet, and it becomes into the seven vials. It's a good thing that the Lord stops his judgment short, or who would live? So the third is seven. But notice too, as brought out, this affects. It doesn't say anything about killing men. I don't think. It just says many men died of the waters. I think that's the only. And ships destroyed. So there is death, but it's not a judgment. It's a secondary thing. It's not a judgment against men. It's a judgment upon the earth. It's almost like a purging of the earth, of this thing. And men die because of the waters, but it doesn't say how many. Of course, ships are destroyed. Well, I'm sure there's men on them. It doesn't say how many. Later, we'll see with the vials. Near the end, it's upon men that this is inflicted. So that's another difference. That's another reason why I see now, I can't see them like I did before. I see them probably in succession. But we'll go on. Then right here, we have like a break, and we see the angel. So it's going to be miraculous times. There's not going to be any atheists during this time. They're going to believe in God, a God, whether it's the true Lord or Satan or spiritual things. There's not going to be any of those who do not believe in the spiritual realm. They're going to be such miraculous things. These guys, the angels, as we're going to see flying all over the place, it's just not going to be like that. So the angel of the three woes. And of course, his ministry is not all woe, 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 woe all the time. His ministry is just before the three woes. So it seems again that there's some chronology, there's a break. Like this doesn't happen up over here, the fifth trumpet. It wouldn't make sense. There's 3 rows, and it seems to go along. So midst of heaven, that's another thing where it's mid-heaven, meaning like, of course, the atmosphere. I take it as being the first heaven. Kind of hard to be flying through space, you know. It could be, but I mean, it's going to be pretty loud. He does say with a loud voice, people are going to hear. No matter where he is, people are going to hear this. And it's woe to inhabitants of the earth by reason of the other voices of the trumpets. Tells them exactly what's going on, and maybe they even hear these trumpets. I don't know. Maybe the earth hears a blast or not. I don't know. But why would the angel, if they didn't hear these, or something that they know all of a sudden there's a start, besides just the actual event, would make the sense that 3 trumpets left to come, unless God is also referring back to his word. Maybe his word will still be around. People will realize when they hear this guy, the 3 trumpets, exact same thing. They're hearing a message. All of a sudden you hear like a loudspeaker. Woe, woe, woe to the inhabitants of the earth by reason of the other voices of the trumpets of the 3 angels which are yet to sound. When they see exactly as it's written here being spread, I don't know if they see the angel or not. Maybe not. I mean, if he takes a normal sized body like ours or something in that form and you're up 20,000 feet, I don't think you see it. But they hear it. And that's what happens. They hear that and they match it up. I think a lot will get saved. They start turning to it. Of course, others will have natural explanation. It's the enemy or whatever they say. And yeah. Okay, let's read on then. Chapter 9. And the 5th angel sounded, and I saw a star fall from heaven unto the earth, and to him, see, this is interesting. This is where you see a direct reference to a star being an angel, and which is no problem. So, and yet, too, as we just seen, an angel in charge of the sun, in charge of maybe all the suns, how they can be flipped around too. And to him was given the key of the bottomless pit.
And he opened the bottomless pit, and there was smoke in the pit, like the smoke of a great furnace. And the sun and the air was darkened by reason of the smoke.
And there came out of the smoke locusts upon the earth, and upon them was given power, as the scorpions of the earth have power.
And it was commanded them that they should not hurt the grass of the earth, neither any green thing, neither any tree, but only those men which have not the seal of God in their foreheads.
And to them it was given that they should not kill them, but they should be tormented 5 months, and their torment was as the torment of a scorpion when he striketh a man.
And in those days shall men seek death, and they shall not find it, and shall desire to die, and death shall flee from them.
And the shapes of the locusts were like horses prepared unto battle, and on their heads were as if it were crowns like gold, and their faces were like the faces of men.
And they had hair as the hair of women, and their teeth were as the teeth of lions.
And they had breastplates, as it were breastplates of iron, and the sound of their wings was as the sound of chariots of many horses running to battle.
They had tails like scorpions, and there were stings in their tails, and their power was to hurt men 5 months.
And they had a king over them, who is the angel of the bottomless pit, whose name in the Hebrew tongue is Abaddon, but in the Greek tongue hath his name Apollyon.
One woe is past, and behold, there come 2 woes more hereafter.
And the 6th angel sounded, and I heard a voice from the 4 horns of the golden altar which is before God,
saying to the 6th angel who had the trumpet, loose the 4 angels who are bound in the great river Euphrates. And the 4 angels,
And the 4 angels were loosed, who were prepared for an hour, and a day, and a month, and a year, to slay the 3rd part of men.
And the number of the army of the horsemen were 200,000, and I heard the number of them.
And thus I saw the horses in the vision, and them that sat on them, having breastplates of fire, and of jacinth and brimstone, and the heads of the horses were as the heads of lions, and out of their mouths issued fire and smoke and brimstone.
by these 3 was the 3rd part of men killed by fire, and by the smoke and brimstone which issued from their mouths.
And their power is in their mouth, and in their tails, for their tails were like serpents, and their heads and with them they do hurt.
And the rest of the men which were not killed by these plagues yet repented, not in the works of their hands, that they should not worship bells, and idols of gold, and silver, and brass, and stone, and of wood, which neither can see, nor hear, nor talk.
Neither repented they of their murders, nor of their sorceries, nor of their fornication, nor of their thefts. So here, here we have two woes. The angel talked about the last three trumpets, last two of the trumpets, and it's interesting. A lot of stuff that's in here. Their speculation is who the star is. Some say it's just another angel. Some say it's Satan himself who has the key. I think some even said it was the Lord or something, being like the angel of Jehovah, because he has the keys of death and Hades. This is, of course, the bottomless pit or the abyss. We'll go through and we'll see if we can see. And it says, and he opened the bottomless pit, and there arose a smoke out of the pit, as the smoke of a great furnace. And it's interesting, I literally take, I know some don't, but I literally take that Hades is in the center of the earth.
Me too.
And just from different scriptures, always talking about down. I don't think it's symbolic. I think it's down. I think heaven's up from our perspective. And you'll see that there seems to be like a shaft. By this, there seems to be a shaft that goes down to the pit or to Hades. And there seem to be different compartments in there. Before there was paradise in Hades. But now the Lord Jesus led that up to where he is after the cross. Because that's where Abraham's bosom was. That's Luke 16. Where still Hades, the place of torment, and you have the rich man looking up and seeing Lazarus. He didn't look up to heaven. He looked up. There's a great gulf, talked about Isaiah separating. But there's a gulf there, and he looked up and saw him. And it was a place called Sheol, and it was a place of the dead until they go up to be with the Lord, because until you cleanse that which is in the heavenlies. And there's also seemed to be a place called Tartarus. That which I hold to are the angels who had sinned in such a way to leave their first estate and to, how does it put it? Corrupt themselves with other flesh. Basically the mating of the angels with the women and making like a half race. And I heard a commentary. It was interesting. Another reason why God destroyed them was because he couldn't redeem them. He can only redeem 100% man when he became man. He can't redeem a half angel, half man. And so he killed them. And again, it's always been Satan's plan to try to have a race to go against God, have something go against God, but also the thwart his plan of salvation. And so anyways, these angels are in Tartarus. You also see it's the same place, or the abyss. It's also known as the abyss, the place meaning bottomless. You think it's probably black too. It's interesting, like, we think of fire, fire is red if you're out from it. But if you had red like this, you can't see it, it's black. And if you have different things about hell, it's called utter darkness.
But
See,
that wouldn't be Hades, though. Outer darkness would be
Gehenna,
the final
lake of fire. Yeah. And what's interesting? I always thought, why couldn't that be the sun? I mean, it's a lake of fire. But anyways, it's just a thought. And so there's this place. There seems to be a shaft or something, and it's nothing that it's in the center of the earth. I don't see any problem with that. You figure the circumference of the earth is about 21,000 miles, and pi d is what circumference is. So that means the diameter is about 7,000 miles, and radius is half that. So 3,500 miles to the center of the earth. I can't see any problem about us not knowing about something's in the center. I mean, the deepest shaft I think we have for mining is 5 miles or something like that. So what is that to 3,500, eh?
It's also molten.
Yeah, which makes it. So anyways, there seems to be this shaft. There seems to be, and there's a smoke coming out of it. And of course, if you open a shaft that goes that deep down and there's all that heat and stuff, why not? Because of a great furnace, as the smoke of a great furnace. And much greater than that. And the sun and the air were darkened by reason of the smoke of the pit. So you have the fifth trumpet. You have the pit, the smoke. And again, all this smoke in the atmosphere. You imagine this doing again? You got all this from that earthquake. You have the sun being darkened, you have now more smoke. It doesn't mean it fills the whole earth. I don't think. Does it say? Well, it just says the sun and the air were darkened. Now, whether it's pretty well localized to where it opens or it spreads all over, either way. And then you have the locusts. And that's the fifth one. And it says there were locusts. I believe these are literal locusts, not like locusts we see today. These, I believe, will be special locusts. They'll be demonic type locusts. But I think they're not like spiritual forms. I think they have physical, touchable forms. I think they're to be physical. And they'll be locusts. And why I think they are still like locusts is, and I know a lot of expositors, what they'll do, some of them, they'll do like what they call newspaper exposition. They'll take the newspaper and always apply it to this. Of course, and it sounds very neat, like some of these, because of the way they sound like Martin tanks, fire coming out and smoke and all this kind of stuff. But it's interesting. It says people die because of the three things. People die because it's just the fire. People die because it's just the smoke. I haven't heard too many people die of the smoke coming out of a cannon. They die because of the smoke and they die because of the brimstone. And but anyways, I think these real locusts, because you don't tell a tank, or somebody even made these Cobra helicopters.
And another thing too, it says it doesn't say that they kill, it says they had power to hurt.
Yeah, power to hurt.
These are helicopters or tanks, they don't just go around hurting people.
Yeah. Oh, you pinched me. They kill. You don't tell a Cobra helicopter not to eat of the grass. I think these are literal type locusts. I don't think they're like locusts we know today. I don't think you can find a specimen, of course. These are the pit locusts. These are demonically filled, and I think they have a limited time span. That's why they come in torment for a certain period. Actual locusts only live for 5 months. These are only to torment for 5 months. So I think they have like a lifespan. They do certain things, but then they die.
When you say you think they're demonic, if the Lord is sending them,
No, it didn't send them. It says he opened the key and they came out. And just like all these other things, God allows these things. I don't think he desires it none perish and stuff. But just he permits these things to start to go happen. And it says they went upon the earth and given power or the authority as scorpions of the earth have power, and it was commanded that they should not hurt the grass or any green thing or a tree, which normal locusts do. Only those men, and this is where I see it's demonic too, but those men that have not the seal of God in their foreheads. So you see now, these locusts are going after those who don't have at least 104,000, and some even speculate that it's also any of the saved ones have the seal of God, right? Any of the saved individuals, they don't get affected by these locusts. So like search and destroy for these other people. And to them was given that they should not kill them. They should, and it sounds demonic, just like Satan. He was allowed to hurt. First he was allowed to take everything away from Job, but wasn't allowed to hurt him. Then he was allowed to hurt him but not kill him. Seems similar here. It seems like they have demonic, that's why I mean demonic in the sense that they have some intelligence. They're able to discern. They're able to see spiritually who has a seal of God and who doesn't. I mean, the demons knew the Son of God as soon as they saw him. They have spiritual discernment and seeing, and so they're not able to do that. But that they should torment 5 months, and the torment was the torment of a scorpion when you strike a man. And if you read your notes, there's a lot of different scorpions, but the most painful, is supposedly have the most painful sting in the whole world, is a scorpion that lives in the Mid-Eastern desert. Of any creature living, it has the most painful sting. Yeah. And so these ones, it's like that torment. And I don't think the men get struck, and the men who get stung are in torment for 5 months. But that they're in torment when they get stung. Now maybe the sting lasts like a normal sting, so it lasts about a day or so. There's gonna be a lot of these guys around, and I can see multiple stings. You imagine that? Just the torment.
So the people that would have the seal of the Lord in their forehead, those are the ones who had come over to the Lord in the middle of somewhere in that tribulation period.
Right. Well, up to this point, and maybe even during, maybe some get saved even during this period, and then the locusts stop hitting them. Whether the seal is these sealed, right, or the seal of God, like we are sealed by the Holy Spirit, that seal, it means also the tribulation saints. It seems when you go through some of it that a lot of the things, like some of these things that affect the earth and that, will affect the redeemed, right? And they're going to be mainly beheaded and stuff. They're not exempt from stuff, and they will suffer. But at the same time, it seems like a lot of the stuff that's directed to the Antichrist's men, right? Satan's men, seems to be not affecting it. And it's the same with, you look at the plagues again. Those in Israel were not affected. The infestations of the fleas or whatever they weren't infected. They were protected. And so it seems to be that way too. And they shall seek death and not shall find it. Some say, well, whether this is every time they try to stab themselves with a knife, I don't know what it does, but what it says is they'll seek it and they'll not find it. They'll have the desire to die and they'll flee from them. Maybe they'll wound themselves and maim themselves or whatever, but they won't die. I don't know. Do you have a comment there?
Well, something I was reading this morning after I got into a dispute with my Christian neighbor who believes about, it's God's will to heal everybody. Well, it's Satan's will to deceive people by healing them too, eh?
Yeah.
So,
Well, sure.
we know he has that power, so
That's a good point.
like these things won't kill them, but they'll want to die if it really hurts them. But then if they do try and kill themselves, well, they'll probably get healed miraculously, by Satan's power.
Yeah.
Because
Could be.
they won't be able to die. So, and I'm sure people would try and kill themselves during this time to escape the torment.
Yeah.
So there's going to be people.
There's got to be something.
Spared somehow, but
Yeah.
it will be satanic power that spares them.
Not the Lord. Yeah. Which again would maybe give them more allegiance to Satan. Now this next part is the shapes of the locust, and it's interesting. These you got to watch these phrases. Were like unto horses. It doesn't say these shapes were horses. I saw one on that Mark 4 videos about the 4 videos concerning tribulation, the image of the beast, and the particle planet. They actually make these scorpions horses. You should see the size of the sting they got on the thing. The guy gets stung. He's got a stinger like that big. Oh yeah, he's got blood like here. He's got a big hole in him because of the sting. I think it's literal in that they're like horses, but they're probably about the size of locusts too. They're probably about that big. I mean, the thing's got wings. I mean, this thing would have to be bigger than the Pegasus. Like, it would have to be like that if it's the size of a horse. No, it's not that impossible, but I see like the word always like meaning similar to.
Or they could be like mass themselves in a cloud, in a swarm, like a horse, and just, there's somebody, and then.
Yeah. And they're prepared in battle, so they're like unto horses. On their heads were crowns. So they do have crowns, but they're like gold. Okay? So they have there are things, they do have these things, right? But they're like. So they have faces, but they're as the faces of men. And they have hair, and it's as the hair of women. And they do have teeth, and as the teeth of lions. And so you can see this. That's another thing where I think it's like demonic. Of course, like any type of locust we know. But each thing, it has these things, and some of them maybe represent things. The teeth, they bite too. They sting, they bite. I mean, they fly. Breastplates, they do have breastplates. They have maybe like an external skeleton, right? They have these things, and they're as iron, meaning impenetrable. You're not gonna be able to squish these things too easy. Yeah, and the sound of their wings as the sound of chariots, meaning horses running the battle. Of course, this is where some get their Cobra helicopters or tanks, but it's as that sound. And what to me this is just like some you get. I've heard some big mosquitoes before too. These ones you're really gonna hear them, and it's just like yeah. So you're gonna hear these things, and the main thing too, I think, by the sound too, is even the sound will get to you.
Well, I think they could be as big as whatever. Because, John in his vision, he sees what they look like.
Yeah.
Okay, so.
But it says the shapes were the shapes of locusts.
Yeah.
But they were like unto horses, and not just unto horses in shape, like unto horses prepared unto battle.
Like, they could be large things or they could be small things, but the whole point is there's so many of them, and the people will probably recognize them by the descriptions too. Like you see these things coming, you want to run.
So, anyways, they come out, and they have tails too, like scorpions, like unto scorpions. So it's not a scorpion tail, but it's like unto. And now, what does it do? There were stings, and their power was to hurt men with their sting, and they had a king over them. So this shows now they're not total locusts, because if you look in Proverbs says the locusts have no king. This is where I think it's demonic too. These have a king. And if they're demonic, that king is Satan, which is the angel of the bottomless pit. Now, if this king over them is Satan, and this is the angel of the bottomless pit, now is this the same angel that opened the pit? Not necessarily.
I don't think so, because Jesus
No.
has the keys
I don't
right
think
now.
Satan would have keys in the pit.
No. I don't think he's going to be out and let his demons out. He's the king. He's the king of this. These are ones that were cast into Tartarus. He's still over them and such, but they're let loose, and they come out.
But the only question I wonder, if these are Satan's representative, why then would they not be going after people that were gods rather than those who didn't believe?
Yeah. Well, they're sealed. Everything.
Satan doesn't care who he hurts.
No. In fact, another commentary I read is maybe he's even using this again as intimidation. Like he wants, no matter how he does it, he wants people to curse God. He doesn't care. He really doesn't care about his people.
I see.
You know, he doesn't care if they're tormented. He wants them all to be in hell as far as he cares. You know, but just long he wants them alive to do more of his bidding, so he can get more stuff. And it's just like testimonies I heard of people who were Satanist high priests, like Warnke. And near the end, he was almost totally destroyed. I mean, all strung out on drugs and stuff. He looked horrible. And Mike Warnke, he's a Christian comedian now, but he was a Satanist high priest before. And one thing, he looked in the mirror and he said he looked like death warmed over. And all he said that he heard in his mind was, "I got you now, sucker." And it was almost like Satan saying to him, you know, he really didn't care about him. You know, just wanted to destroy him. That's what the thief comes to do, to kill and to destroy. So, the angel, this angel is named Abdagon, and also known as Apollyon, the destroyer. The same thing, whether Hebrew or Greek, the destroyer. So whether this is maybe a principality, a prince of these demons, and Satan's still over him, or referring to Satan. And what's that? No. So I think it's one other kind. It's one of these prince demons. It's like there's princes over certain areas. There's a hierarchy. And so it's the king of them. And one woe is past, and behold, there come two woes more hereafter. And so the fifth trumpet, you have the locusts going around. And it's a good thing they don't hurt the earth and trees and grassland. It's already been affected. But they're inflicting pain and woe. And again, I'm sure these guys being deceived, they're going to blame it on the 144 or whoever. You know, they're going to blame it on the others, and they're going to martyr them, kill them, or whatever. And the sixth angel sounded, and I heard the voice from the four horns of the altar, golden altar which is before God, saying to the sixth angel which had the trumpet, "Loose the four angels which are bound in the great river Euphrates." As we go through this, it looks like these angels they're demonic angels. These are demons again, because first they're bound. The other angels weren't bound. They had ministries, they seemed to be open, they were just told to hold off. These guys, they're bound. And bounding of angels, again, with Tartarus and everything, seems to be a judgment. And it would give reasons why they go against them and what they do. Again, just their fury. So trumpet 6, you have it deals with Euphrates, just like the bowl deals with Euphrates, but this is totally different. Euphrates, and you have 4 angels, or demons actually. And they're bound, and so the 4 angels were loosed, prepared for the hour and the day. And it's interesting, it's for the hour. There's an article there, meaning the hour. It shows something very specific. Some take this to mean a whole, add it all together and you get the time span. Prepared for the hour, the day, and the month, and the year, and then you add it all together. So 1 year, one month, 1 day, 1 hour. At the specific time, but this is the amount of time that they're loosed, rather than that specific. I think it refers more to specific day, hour. They have this one point to do. And the number of the army of the horsemen were 200,000. That's 200 million. And I heard the number of them. And thus I saw the horses in the vision, and then it sat on them, having breastplates of fire and of jacket